Hello wrestling Freunde. Today we have a special guest from the USA. He's crazy, funny, but also danger, a living weapon. Welcome back, Shaka.
Oh, it's good to be back. It's I think the second time this year in about 2 years since I was in Germany last. It's always good to be back. It's like my second home. It's certainly my first wrestling home now. It's awesome to be back, especially for Top Catch. So, whew, what can I say?
Good. When you look back at the last years, what have you most missing from Germany?
Oh man. I'll be honest. One of the things I love, the fans are very passionate about what they see in wrestling. I think that's what I miss the most. Never always in the same town twice. And of course, it's always the beer.
Good German beer.
It's always the beer.
Shaka, you're a wrestler, but now you're also an MMA fighter. How do you come to the decision go in the other ring?
Oh man, that was a crossroads for me actually. When I started training in MMA, it's a whole different world. One of the things a lot of guys in wrestling take for granted is, for one, you have to train to, you're being trained to get hit in the face, hit the other guy in the face, make sure you hit him in the face before he hits you, and then on top of that, make sure he doesn't grab a part of your arms, is what we do most of the time, but it's totally different. So preparing myself mentally for MMA was kind of tough. It's tougher than most people think. If it was easier, I think we have a lot more people from wrestling transferring over to mixed martial arts. So it's a bigger deal than people think it is, and it's not as barbaric. It's more of a chess game, and bringing that back over to wrestling is a bit of a challenge too, because you're doing more than just one discipline at a time. And that's what I found out, there's more than one grappling discipline. I mean, we're used to seeing strong style, lucha, totally different world. Totally different world.
Can you tell us something about your first match?
Longest 3 minutes of my life. not counting in between the rounds. Like I said, going into it, you have to be mentally prepared. There's a reason why you have, if you're lucky enough to have a fight camp, if you're lucky enough to have a big team, going in was bare bones. He had the guy to set the match up for me, and he brought in a guy to train me. And if you don't know what you're doing, it'll totally wreck a fighter's mentality altogether going in. If you're not mentally in tune, you'll know it, because going in during, like I'd say, the first few seconds of my first round, a part of me sat up there and said, what am I doing here? The minute I said that, the guy took me down, and I was like, okay, back to reality. So I grab his leg, do something, like keep him from doing something to you. So it's like basically, it's a whole different game than it is, and people think it is. When you're doing it, your whole attitude changes. When you're watching it, you can say a whole bunch of things. You can see this, you can say that, but when you're in that cage, it changes your whole perspective. So it was a big eye opener for me. Since then, I haven't been back in the cage. I've still trained, and in between that, I just came back from Florida about a month ago. I just got certified as a conditioning coach for MMA. So even if I never go back in the cage, I can still train other fighters to fight in the cage. But bringing what little bit of experience I have from that is a big help. I can also do the same for wrestlers. I mean, even if they never go into a cage themselves, even if they never go into the grappling game, submission grappling game, I can still get them ready. And the next generation, they really need it. For us to be a sport again, considered a sport again, professional wrestling, there's a lot of changes we have to make. Because one of the things I got before my first fight, the ring announcer asked how we wanted to be announced, and I told him what I was a professional wrestler. And we get a lot of flack. People get a lot more flack. Because the first thing he asked me was, do we expect to see pile drivers? I'm like, oh, here we go. When I saw the online version of the fight, same thing. They're doing the commentary. One guy says, if he gives a high sign, I'll throw in a chair. They rip me apart. They really rip me apart. So like I said, we have a lot to do here in professional wrestling to restore that as a sport. We may not think so, but after stepping into MMA, we've got a lot more to learn. We do. The sport has to evolve, and I don't mean looking flashier. I don't care about the promos. That part's easy. The harder part is getting in there. I mean, it's one thing to know the moves. You can come up with something cool, but if you don't know the basics from getting out of a front headlock, if you don't know how to get out of a guillotine, if you don't know how to do a guillotine, or your leg locks, you know nothing. And professional wrestling, I'm going to tell you, after being in that cage, we need an overhaul, big time, big time.
Okay, wrestler like Brock Lesnar or now Batista going inside the cage. Do you think Batista has a chance as a fighter in the cage?
I would say probably not. It depends on who he trains for. And I say this in all honesty because, like, all right, I'll be honest. I'm 39 years old. I had that fight at 37. And I know Batista's almost 50, so, I mean, he has his age working against him. Experience is a big thing. I know Herschel Walker went in at 42 and had a pro fight, did very well. That depends. If he's smart enough to actually work his way up, it's all about paying your dues again. If he's smart enough to work his way up in the amateurs first, that's fine. Get a few amateur matches in, he might do okay. But he's not built for MMA. It's a big jump. Lesnar had an advantage because he had a wrestling background. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was All-American for Michigan, not Michigan, for Minnesota University. And before that, before he got picked up, he got picked up in K1, and that was pretty much the precursor for MMA in Japan. I mean, for anybody that doesn't know about K1, you're not just fighting. It's a combination of kung fu, karate, taekwondo, kickboxing. So anything in stand-up. And this is a guy that, you know, started off in grappling, then he had to work on stand-up in the Dana White cult and brought him into UFC. And did rather well as a draw. Batista, on the other hand, I think he has a long road ahead of him. I don't know what his experience is before that, so that's up to him, really. So, honestly.
Okay. You wrestled against Batista many years ago.
Yes.
Before he was a WWE superstar. Can you tell us something about the match?
That was exactly 11 years ago. He was on developmental contract. This is before, just before he went to Ohio Valley. And he was wrestling in a tag team called the Titaniums, and his name was Titanium Khan. He was clean shaven. He had a little bit of facial hair here and didn't have the big back piece. And he was wrestling as Titanium Khan. His partner was Titanium Tim. And we went in as 11 on PA. And I'm the smallest guy in the ring. My partner is his size too. And I get tagged in. I'm like, okay, let's see. He's green, developmental contract. And all you hear in the crowd is this, and the original member of Excessive Forces in the crowd, he came up with us. He's like, oh, Shaka's dead. Next thing you know, you see this big bear paw, boom, just knocked me in the next day. And he gives me this nice, massive, nasty, you know, he's using a Dominator back then. So for anybody that doesn't know what the Dominator is, Farouk used to use it. So needless to say, he took a lot of wind out of me, and everybody thought I got killed for real. I was like, no, he just went at me, get him in. Okay, I'm good. So he knocked the wind out of me in that match, and he ended up walking out with a big handprint in the chest. Seriously. I wish I had a camera for that.
Yeah. When you could wish your opponent, who would it be? Lesnar or Batista?
That's not going to happen, and I'll tell you why. My walk-around weight's around 200 pounds. These guys, they're probably walking around close to 300. We're not even the same weight class. Unless MMA has an absolute title, something like that. No, I can't see that happening. Neither one.
And when you couldn't wish in the wrestling ring?
Once again, all right, Lesnar, All right, we're talking about a guy that has a little bit more experience than I do. Once again, we're in different weight classes, but that's a bad excuse. I can't say that. I mean, if I can dump a guy on his head like Chris Cruden, he's like 400 pounds. Okay, I can't say that. No, I be honest with you, I never ever pictured the possibility of wrestling either one. A rematch with Batista. Maybe. I don't see the point behind it. Credibility, like, this is the problem I have with wrestling now. Credibility's going out the window, so there's nothing to prove there. Lesnar, he would lose more than I would if that was to happen. He's not going back in the wrestling ring. I mean, think about it. I think I had this debate before when I was here before. Somebody said if the money was right, he'd go back to the E. I'll tell you why that's not going to happen. One, he left because he didn't like the schedule. Two, you're in MMA. You only have to train to fight for no more than 3 fights a year. In between that, you got fight camp. And in this particular case, he's in the next season of Ultimate Fighter, so he's a coach for that one. And he's got his own line of clothing for MMA, so why would he go back into wrestling? He's got everything he wants. Right. So, unheard of. Totally unheard of.
Okay. Your new wrestling style is more full of submission moves. What do you think about the wrestling match when you only can win by submission?
I have no problem with it whatsoever. I mean, it's wrestling. Grappling involves submissions anyway. Everybody got so hooked into pinfalls. I'll be honest. I've always had a submission game, and I'm always learning more submissions. I'm actually learning more takedowns. I'm actually learning working. I don't have a problem working on my back anymore. I know a wrestler's biggest fear in our sport is ever being on their back or giving away their back. I don't have a problem being on the bottom. If you're comfortable with that sort of thing, that's not a problem. Last year, my grappling coach, he's a purple belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So working with him, I can be on my back all day and it wouldn't matter. I mean, as far as submission only, I'm all for it. The question is my opponent all for it? I'm fine with it.
Okay. Now you're back here in Wismar and work for Top Catch, a promotion formed by a woman. What do you think about Miss Babic?
From what I hear, there's never ever been a female promoter in wrestling history.
Yeah, right.
So that's history in itself. So I mean, I don't mind killing a few sacred cows. That's one of my stock and trades anyway. A lot of people think, and I hate to say it this way, a lot of people think that me doing a whole MMA, the people who didn't get the memo 3 years ago, they think it's a gimmick. It's not a gimmick. When I got to talk to Miss Babic about coming to Top Catch, I figured it'd be a good opportunity. I still do. It's a new project, a new product. She was trying to be more traditional in German wrestling, and I think I got a taste of that when I was over at Eddie Steinblock, and I think it'll be an interesting endeavor. I'm all for it, so I'm honored to be aboard, to be honest with you. So it seems like she's trying to move back in the right direction, so works for me.
Good. Tonight you have to fight against Lexxus in a title match. Do you know something about your opponent?
From what I understand, I actually got a chance to scout one of his matches from 2 years ago. The question is, I'm ready for him. I'm always ready for anybody I'm in a ring with. The question is he ready for me? That's the question. Okay. I don't have a problem with him at all. Except for the fact that why would he take a name that sounds like a car?